The galactic command chamber hummed with the low thrum of 1,000 worlds unified under one banner. I, Commander Thexol of the Vraxian Third Fleet, had witnessed countless species petition for inclusion in the Alliance. Most came bearing tribute, others with desperate pleas for protection. None had ever made me laugh quite like this. The human stood before the Council of Seven, her posture rigid, chin elevated in what I could only assume was some primitive display of confidence. Her species had been discovered merely 6 solar cycles ago, inhabiting a small blue planet on the outer rim of a forgettable spiral arm. They called it Earth. We called it Target Practice Zone Theta. You wish to join our military divisions? High Chancellor Morvek's voice dripped with amusement, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. As a warrior? Affirmative, the human replied. Her voice carried no wavering, no hesitation. Curious. I leaned forward in my observation pod, studying her through the reinforced viewing portal. She was small by galactic standards, barely reaching 2 standard meters. Her frame appeared fragile, lacking the reinforced exoskeleton of the Krellians, the dense muscle fiber of the Torque, or the adaptive armor plating that made my own species nearly indestructible. Her skin was smooth, unmarred by battle scars or ceremonial combat markings. She wore what appeared to be a simple dark uniform, utterly unremarkable. Let me understand this correctly, Ambassador Vixen interjected, her tail swishing with barely contained mirth. Your species has just achieved basic, faster-than-light travel. You have no plasma shield technology, no quantum weapons, no genetic enhancement protocols. Your average lifespan is, what, 100 of your planetary rotations? Roughly, yes. And you believe you can serve alongside warriors who have trained for centuries? Species whose very evolution has been shaped by warfare spanning millennia? The human, this creature calling herself Lieutenant Kara Voss, simply nodded once. Sharp. Definitive. The council chamber erupted in laughter. Not polite diplomatic chuckles, but genuine, raucous amusement. General Korthax, veteran of 43 planetary campaigns, slapped his primary appendage against his console so hard the metal dented. Oh, this is rich. The soft skin thinks she's a warrior. I found myself laughing too, though something about the human's expression gave me pause. Her eyes, those strange binocular organs with their exposed whites and colored centers, never wavered. She stood perfectly still, while hundreds of the galaxy's most powerful beings mocked her. Lieutenant Voss, High Chancellor Morvek managed between chuckles, perhaps you misunderstand the nature of galactic warfare. This is not some territorial dispute between primitive tribes. We face enemies that can vaporize entire star systems. We deploy soldiers who can survive in hard vacuum, regenerate from catastrophic injuries, and process tactical data at speeds your neural tissue cannot comprehend. What exactly do you bring to this arena? Myself, she said simply. More laughter, louder this time. And what makes you so special, human? General Korthax leaned back in his throne, clearly enjoying this theater. Do you possess some hidden ability? Can you breathe plasma? Survive neutron star gravity? Phase through solid matter? No. Then what? I don't think I'm a warrior, Lieutenant Voss said, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade through flesh. I know I am. The chamber fell silent. That particular combination of words, delivered with such absolute certainty, had weight even I had to acknowledge. It was the voice of someone who had seen death and walked away, who had been broken and reformed. Every veteran in that room recognized the tone, even if we doubted the source. High Chancellor Morvek's expression shifted from amusement to something harder to define. Bold words, Lieutenant. Very well. If you truly believe you belong among the Alliance's finest, then you will undergo the proving. Do you know what that entails? I've been briefed. Then you know that 67% of candidates do not survive. The remaining 33%, minus an additional 19% who sustain injuries requiring complete body reconstruction, typically wash out within the first phase. The actual graduation rate hovers near 7%, and those are among species bred for combat. I understand the statistics, Chancellor. And you still wish to proceed? I didn't come here to be dismissed with numbers, Voss replied. I came here to prove what humanity can do. Give me your worst test, your hardest trial. I'll walk out the other side. Ambassador Vixen leaned forward, her amusement fading into something more predatory. Your confidence borders on delusion, human. But very well. You will begin the proving at dawn. Orbital Cycle 0700. Report to Training Complex 9. Commander Thexol will oversee your evaluation. Wait, what? I straightened in my pod as every ocular sensor in the room swiveled toward my position. Me? Surely General Korthax or... You served as training master for the Vraxian Elite Guard for 30 cycles, Morvek interrupted. You've broken recruits from 17 different species. If anyone can measure this human's true capabilities and her limitations, it is you. Break her quickly, Commander. Kindly. Save her the suffering of prolonged failure. I inclined my head, accepting the assignment despite my reservations. As you command, Chancellor? Lieutenant Voss turned to face my observation pod. Even through the reinforced barriers and distance, I felt the weight of her gaze. She placed her right fist over her chest in what I recognized as a human salute, then spoke clearly. I look forward to working with you, Commander. Get some rest, human, I responded through the chamber's communication array. Tomorrow, you will need it. She smiled then, a peculiar expression that exposed her teeth. A gesture that among most species would signal aggression, but among humans apparently indicated amusement or confidence. With respect, Commander, I don't think rest will be necessary. I've been preparing for this my entire life. Such arrogance, such absolute certainty. I had seen it before in recruits from warrior cultures, in soldiers enhanced by genetic manipulation, in beings that had been literally engineered for combat. It usually lasted until the first real test. Then reality would crush them, and they would either adapt or break. Somehow, I suspected that breaking Lieutenant Kara Voss might prove more difficult than anticipated. The next morning arrived with the artificial dawn that cycled through Station Korvax, the massive orbital platform serving as the Alliance's primary training facility. I waited in Training Complex 9, watching the sunrise simulation paint the walls in shades of orange and red. The complex was a marvel of engineering, 50 square kilometers of programmable terrain, environmental controls capable of simulating any known planetary condition, and enough weaponry to level a small continent. Lieutenant Voss arrived exactly on time. She wore light training armor, minimal compared to the full combat suits worn by most recruits. She carried no visible weapons. "You're early," I observed, my translator converting my native growl into flat galactic standard. "Punctuality is a basic discipline, Commander. I'd be embarrassed to fail before even starting." I gestured toward the equipment station. The first phase tests physical capability, strength, speed, endurance, adaptability. You will complete an obstacle course designed for Krellian shock troops. They average 3 meters in height and possess 4 times your muscle density. Most other species use powered exoskeletons to match their baseline performance. You may select one if you wish. She glanced at the rows of mechanical assistance frames, then shook her head. "I'll pass." "This is not about pride, Lieutenant. The course is objectively beyond your species' physical parameters." "Then I'll exceed my parameters." Stubborn creature. "Very well. Begin when ready. The course materialized around us, holographic barriers solidifying into physical obstacles, walls 12 meters high, gaps requiring leaps of 8 meters or more, weighted cargo requiring 500 kilograms of lift strength, acid pools, fire zones, sections of microgravity and hypergravity. It was brutal, unforgiving, and specifically designed to push even enhanced soldiers to their absolute limits. Lieutenant Voss approached the starting line, rolling her shoulders once, twice. She took 3 deep breaths, a pre-combat ritual perhaps, then exploded forward. She hit the first wall at a sprint, using momentum and precise footwork to run up the surface, catching the top edge with her fingers. The grip should have been impossible. The angle too severe, but she hauled herself up through what appeared to be pure, stubborn determination. Her muscles strained visibly, tendons standing out like cables, but she made it over. The second obstacle required leaping across a 12-meter gap above a pit of molecular disintegration mist. Standard procedure called for a running start and maximum power output. Most species could clear it easily. Humans, with their limited leg strength and gravity-adapted musculature, should have fallen short by at least 4 meters. Lieutenant Voss backed up 20 paces, then ran. Her final step hit the edge of the platform, and she launched herself into open air. For a moment, I calculated her trajectory, confirmed she would fall short, prepared to activate the emergency containment field. Then she twisted mid-flight, grabbing a support beam I had forgotten existed, one meant for maintenance drones, and used it to swing herself forward, releasing at the apex to carry herself the remaining distance. She hit the landing platform in a roll, converting momentum into forward motion, already moving toward the next challenge. Clever. Improvised. Completely against standard doctrine, but effective. The weighted cargo section proved more difficult. She couldn't lift the 500-kilogram containers using brute force. That was simply physics. Instead, she repositioned the mass, found leverage points, used mechanical advantage and kinetic energy transfer. It took her 3 times longer than a Krellian recruit, but she moved each container to its designated position. By the time she reached the acid pools, I had stopped mentally cataloging her inevitable failure points and started actually analyzing her technique. She was slow by galactic standards, certainly weak in terms of raw physical power, but she moved with absolute precision. No wasted energy, no unnecessary movement. Every action calculated for maximum efficiency. The fire zone required sprinting through superheated plasma jets on a randomized timer. Lieutenant Voss paused at the entrance, observing the pattern for exactly 30 seconds, then burst forward. She moved like liquid, ducking, weaving, diving under jets that would have incinerated her in milliseconds. One clipped her shoulder, burning through her armor, but she didn't slow down. She crossed the finish line 4 hours, 17 minutes, and 32 seconds after starting. For reference, the Krellian record was 1 hour and 43 minutes. But Lieutenant Voss had completed it, without enhancements, without powered armor, without genetic modifications. She collapsed on the far side, chest heaving, sweat coating her skin. The burn on her shoulder looked painful, the synthetic flesh angry and blistered. She would need medical attention. I activated my transport platform, descending to her level. "You should seek treatment." "In a minute," she gasped, still catching her breath. "Did I pass?" "You completed Phase 1. That alone places you in the top 30% of all candidates, regardless of species." She pushed herself to sitting, then to standing, despite the obvious exhaustion and pain. "Not good enough. What's Phase 2? "Lieutenant, you require—" "What's Phase 2, Commander?" I studied her for a long moment. The human stood before me, damaged, exhausted, pushed far beyond what her biology should have allowed, and yet still demanding more. There was something terrifying about that level of determination, something that reminded me of the most dangerous warriors I had ever encountered. Combat simulation, I finally answered. Live fire exercises against adaptive AI opponents. It begins in 6 hours. You should rest, eat, seek medical treatment. I'll be ready. You barely survived the physical trials. The combat scenarios are exponentially more difficult. Lieutenant Voss met my gaze, those strange human eyes burning with something I couldn't quite name. Commander Thexol, with all due respect, you still don't understand. I didn't come here to barely survive. I didn't travel across the galaxy to be average. I came here to show you what humans can do. And right now, what I can do is keep going. She turned and walked toward the medical bay, her stride only slightly uneven despite the injuries. I watched her go, feeling a sensation I hadn't experienced in decades of military service. Doubt. Not in her abilities. That would have been reasonable, expected, appropriate. No, I doubted my own assessment. I doubted the Council's dismissiveness. I doubted the statistics and the parameters and the careful predictions. Because Lieutenant Kara Voss, this fragile human from a primitive world on the galaxy's edge, had just demonstrated something our entire civilization had forgotten how to recognize. She had shown us what it meant to refuse defeat, not through superior technology or enhanced genetics or ancient warrior traditions, but through simple, stubborn, unbreakable will. And that, I was beginning to realize, might be the most dangerous weapon in the entire universe. 6 hours later, Lieutenant Voss arrived at Combat Arena Theta, wearing fresh armor and a bandage over her shoulder wound. The medical staff had cleared her for duty with obvious reluctance. I had reviewed their report. Second-degree burns, severe muscle strain, minor ligament damage, elevated stress hormones. Any reasonable being would have taken at least 48 hours recovery time. Humans, apparently, redefined reasonable. Combat Simulation Protocol 7, I announced, pulling up the parameters on my tactical display. You will face 15 adaptive combat drones programmed with combat data from actual battlefield engagements. They learn from your tactics, adapt to your strategies, and escalate lethality progressively. Most recruits survive 3, maybe 4 encounters before sustaining injuries requiring termination of the exercise. What's the record? 11. Held by a Vraxian named Kexnor, who now serves as assault captain in the 2nd Fleet. He had 40 years of combat experience before attempting this trial. Lieutenant Voss checked her plasma rifle, a standard-issue weapon we provided all candidates. Then I know what I'm aiming for. Lieutenant, this is not a competition against records. This is about demonstrating combat competency. Everything is a competition, Commander, especially when people are watching to see you fail. She moved to the arena entrance, then paused. Question: are there rules of engagement? Survive. Win. Those are the only rules. Perfect. The arena doors sealed behind her with a heavy magnetic clamp. I activated the observation protocols, my displays flooding with tactical data. Her heart rate, respiration, neural activity, weapon status, environmental conditions. The arena itself was 100 meters square, filled with variable cover points, elevation changes, and environmental hazards. The drones would spawn at random intervals and locations. Beginning simulation in 3, 2, 1. The first drone materialized behind a cargo container, its sensors sweeping the arena. Standard reconnaissance model, lightly armed, designed to probe defenses and gather tactical intelligence. Lieutenant Voss didn't give it the chance. She dropped prone the instant the countdown ended, using a sightline I hadn't even noticed to place a plasma bolt directly through the drone's sensor array before it completed its first sweep. Efficient, but predictable. The next drones would compensate, Numbers 2 and 3 spawned simultaneously, flanking positions, already accounting for her demonstrated accuracy. They advanced using suppressing fire, forcing her to abandon her position. She retreated behind a reinforced barrier, then did something unexpected. She didn't return fire. She waited, completely still, letting them advance. The drones interpreted her silence as tactical uncertainty. They pushed forward, overlapping their fields of fire, textbook assault coordination. Lieutenant Voss rolled from cover, not away from them but toward them, closing distance while firing upward at an oblique angle. Both drones went down before their targeting systems could compensate for the sudden directional shift. Aggressive, unconventional, effective. Drones 4 through 7 spawned as a coordinated unit, heavy assault models with enhanced shielding. They advanced in formation, covering each other's positions. Standard counter tactics called for area effect weapons or withdrawing to a more defensible position. Lieutenant Voss charged directly at them. I nearly terminated the simulation, certain she had experienced some kind of neural malfunction. No rational combatant would assault a fortified position alone with inferior weapons across open ground. But she wasn't crossing open ground. She was using the terrain features, the elevation changes, the scattered debris. She moved in broken lines, never crossing the same sight angle, twice. When she couldn't find cover, she created it by shooting out support pillars, collapsing partial barriers into temporary obstacles. She fired while moving, while diving, while sliding beneath plasma bursts that missed her by centimeters. 3 drones went down, then 4. The remaining 3 adapted, spreading out, trying to box her in. She let them. The drones thought they had her cornered against the arena's eastern wall. They advanced for the kill, weapons charging for simultaneous execution. Lieutenant Voss shot the wall behind her. The plasma rifle was not powerful enough to penetrate the reinforced structure, obviously. But the heat transfer created a thermal bloom, briefly disrupting the drone's optical sensors. In that half-second of digital blindness, she moved. Not backward or sideways, but up, using handholds I didn't even know existed to scale 3 meters of vertical surface. The drone's targeting systems were still calibrated for ground level when she dropped among them from above, firing at point-blank range. 7 drones eliminated. I increased the difficulty parameters. Drones 8 through 12 materialized as an elite unit. Sniper models with advanced predictive targeting and enhanced perception algorithms. They positioned themselves at maximum range, coordinating fire lanes to eliminate any possible cover. Lieutenant Voss went underground. Not literally, but functionally. She used maintenance tunnels I had forgotten were accessible, service corridors meant for automated repair systems. The drones, programmed for conventional combat scenarios, lost tracking. She emerged behind their position, eliminating 2 before they could rotate. The remaining 3 split up, forcing her into a multi-directional engagement. This should have been her breaking point. The human body, even under combat stress hormones, has limits. She had been fighting at maximum intensity for 18 minutes. Her heart rate should have been dangerously elevated. Her muscle efficiency should have degraded significantly. Instead, she seemed to be getting faster. She eliminated the 9th drone while dodging fire from the 10th, then used the explosion as concealment to reposition. The 11th drone tracked her movement, adjusted trajectory, fired where she should have been. She wasn't there. She was 3 meters higher, balanced on a support beam no wider than her foot, firing down at an angle the drone's behavioral protocols hadn't anticipated. 12 drones eliminated. I sat back in my observation pod, mandibles clicking in what humans would recognize as disbelief. She had matched the standing record. More than matched it. She had shattered Kexnor's time by 4 minutes, and she wasn't stopping. Drones 13, 14, and 15 spawned as a final examination. command models with full tactical integration and adaptive learning matrices. They wouldn't make the same mistakes their predecessors had. They had already analyzed her entire combat performance and would counter accordingly. Lieutenant Voss ejected her plasma rifle's spent power cell and slammed in her last replacement. I could see the calculation in her eyes. Limited ammunition. 3 opponents with comprehensive data on her tactics. Mathematically, her odds of success had dropped below acceptable parameters. She smiled. The command drones advanced in a pattern specifically designed to eliminate her demonstrated preferences. No blind spots, overlapping coverage, constant position shifting. They were forcing her into an endurance battle she couldn't win. So she changed the battlefield entirely. Lieutenant Voss shot out the primary power conduit feeding the arena's gravity generators. The sudden surge caused a localized field fluctuation, reducing gravity by approximately 60% for a 3-second window. 3 seconds was enough. She launched herself in a trajectory impossible under normal conditions, sailing over the drones' defensive formation while firing in a pattern no human should have been able to calculate mid-flight. All 3 drones tried to track simultaneously, their targeting systems colliding with each other's fields of fire, creating microsecond delays in execution. Lieutenant Voss landed behind them as gravity reasserted itself and placed precision shots into each unit's central processor before they could compensate. 15 drones eliminated. Total time: 23 minutes, 47 seconds. New record. The arena powered down. Lieutenant Voss stood among the wreckage of 15 combat drones, her armor scored by near misses, her breathing heavy but controlled. She looked up at my observation pod and gave that peculiar human salute again. I descended to arena level, reviewing the tactical data, searching for some explanation that made sense within my understanding of combat dynamics. How did you know about the gravity generator weakness? I studied the arena schematics last night. Those are classified. Classified means difficult to access, Commander. Not impossible. I needed every advantage. You cheated. I adapted. Isn't that what warriors do? She met my gaze without flinching. You gave me the parameters: survive and win. You didn't specify method. She was technically correct. Annoyingly correct. You understand that combat drones are predictable compared to actual battlefield conditions? Which is why I'm ready for Phase 3. I checked my data files. There is no Phase 3. Then make one. The audacity. The absolute certainty. I should have been offended. Instead, I found myself intrigued. What exactly are you proposing, Lieutenant? Put me against real opponents. Living, thinking, unpredictable opponents. Your best soldiers. Let them try to stop me. That would be a live combat scenario. Extremely dangerous. Good. Danger means honesty. I need you to see what humans really are, Commander. Not in simulations, not in controlled tests, in actual combat. I considered. This for approximately 0.3 seconds. Very well. Tomorrow, 0600, you will participate in a training exercise with Omega Squad. They are elite special operations soldiers from 6 different species. Veterans of actual combat operations. They will be instructed to treat you as a hostile combatant and neutralize you using any means necessary, short of lethal force. If you survive 30 minutes, I will personally recommend you for advanced warfare training. And if I win? Lieutenant, these are not drones. These are soldiers who have fought in actual wars. Winning is not a realistic objective. Humor me, Commander. If I win, what then? I clicked my mandibles in what translated as resigned amusement. If you somehow manage to defeat Omega Squad, I will recommend your species for immediate inclusion in the Alliance's warrior caste. Not just you. All of humanity. Her expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering behind the confidence. You would do that? I would. But, Lieutenant, I have commanded Omega Squad for 6 years. They have never been defeated in training exercises. They have a combined 300 years of combat experience. The probability of your success is statistically negligible. Then tomorrow should be interesting. She left the arena walking steadily, despite exhaustion that should have incapacitated her. I remained behind, reviewing the combat footage again and again, trying to find the pattern, the explanation, the logical framework that would make her performance comprehensible. I couldn't find it. The next morning arrived with artificial lightning streaking across Korvax Station's simulated storm clouds. Omega Squad assembled in Training Complex 4, 6 of the deadliest soldiers in the Alliance military. I briefed them personally. Your objective is simple. Neutralize one human female, Lieutenant Kara Voss. Treat this as a real combat scenario. She will be armed with standard equipment. You may use any tactics you deem necessary. Squad leader Vexera, a Torque veteran with scars covering 80% of his body, laughed roughly. One human? Commander, this seems beneath our capabilities. Consider it an evaluation of human combat potential. She believes she can defeat all of you. That got their attention. Warriors respect many things, but confidence, bordering on delusion, tends to inspire educational responses. Do not underestimate her, I added. She has already exceeded every expectation. She is faster than her biology should allow, more adaptable than her experience suggests, and apparently incapable of recognizing when she should surrender. Understood, Commander? 30 minutes? If she lasts that long, yes. The squad moved into position. I activated Lieutenant Voss's communication channel. You have 15 minutes to prepare. Study the terrain. Plan your approach. Omega Squad will begin hunting you at 0600. Negative, Commander. Start them now. Lieutenant, you need preparation time. They're expecting me to hide, to prepare, to be afraid. Start them now. Let's see if they can catch someone who isn't running away. I signaled Omega Squad. Target is active. Begin. What followed will be discussed in tactical academies for generations. Lieutenant Voss didn't hide, didn't prepare defensive positions, didn't use her preparation time for reconnaissance. Instead, she went directly toward Omega Squad's insertion point. She ambushed the ambushers. Specialist Krell went down first, a stun grenade at close range, followed by precise nerve strikes that humans apparently called martial arts. He was unconscious before his enhanced reflexes even registered the attack. The remaining 5 members scattered, activating combat protocols, coordinating through encrypted channels. They had trained together for years. They moved like a single organism, adapting instantly to this unexpected aggression. Lieutenant Voss moved faster. She used their coordination against them, predicting their tactical communications, positioning herself where their supporting fire would risk hitting their own team members. She exploited split-second gaps in their coverage, moved through angles that shouldn't have been tactically viable, attacked from positions that violated every principle of conventional warfare. Operator Zixel went down next. Caught in a crossfire she had somehow manipulated 2 other squad members into creating. Technical Sergeant Morax fell to his own ricochet shot after Lieutenant Voss used a reflective surface I hadn't noticed to redirect his plasma bolt. 3 down, 3 remaining. 11 minutes elapsed. Squad leader Vexera called for tactical withdrawal and regrouping. Sound decision. Lieutenant Voss didn't allow it. She pressed the attack, denying them space to coordinate, forcing individual engagements where their numerical advantage became irrelevant. Corporal Thinra, a stealth specialist who could become effectively invisible, tried to flank her. Lieutenant Voss threw a smoke grenade that shouldn't have revealed his position, then fired into the cloud at an angle that seemed random until Thinra collapsed, his stealth systems overloaded by the plasma heat. 4 down. Vexra and Weapons Officer Kitrex took defensive positions, back to back, maximum situational awareness. This was the scenario where numerical advantage reasserted itself. Two veterans, coordinated, covering all approaches. Lieutenant Voss disappeared, not using stealth technology. She simply moved through their observation patterns, using the environment, the lighting, the natural blind spots that all organic sensors possess. For 47 seconds, she was a ghost. Then she was right between them. I still don't understand the physics of how she moved that quickly, that precisely, but she was suddenly inside their defensive perimeter, striking simultaneously at both soldiers. Kitrex went down immediately. Vexra, to his credit, managed to land. A glancing blow that should have at least slowed her down. She absorbed the hit, redirected the energy somehow, and put him on the ground with a combat technique I didn't recognize. Omega Squad eliminated. Total time 19 minutes, 12 seconds. Lieutenant Voss stood among 6 unconscious elite soldiers, breathing hard, favoring her left side where Vexra had struck her, but standing, victorious. I descended to the training complex floor, medical teams rushing past me to attend to Omega Squad. Lieutenant Voss saw me approaching and attempted to stand at attention, then visibly winced and settled for a more casual stance. Medical evaluation, Lieutenant. Immediately. In a moment, Commander. First, I need to know. Did I prove it? Prove what? That humans belong here. That we're not some weak species playing at being warriors. That we can stand alongside anyone in this galaxy. I looked at her, this small, fragile, impossible creature, who had just accomplished something I would not have believed possible if I hadn't witnessed it personally. You proved something, Lieutenant, though I am not certain it is what you intended. Her expression became guarded. Meaning? You proved that individual capability is not solely determined by biology, technology, or heritage. You proved that determination, adaptability, and refusal to accept limitations can overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. I paused, choosing my next words carefully. But you also proved something else. You proved that humans might be the most terrifying warriors this galaxy has ever encountered. Terrifying? Every species in the Alliance became warriors through necessity. We evolved for combat, were genetically designed for warfare, or developed martial traditions over millennia of conflict. We became warriors because that was our nature. I gestured at the 6 unconscious soldiers. Humans became warriors because you simply decided to. Because you looked at the universe and said, "This does not define my limits." That capacity for self-determination, for exceeding your own design parameters through sheer force of will, is perhaps the most dangerous trait any species could possess. Lieutenant Voss was quiet for a long moment. Then that peculiar human smile returned. Is that a compliment, Commander? It is a statement of fact, and a recommendation. I pulled up my command interface, filing the official documentation. As of this moment, I am recommending humanity for inclusion in the Alliance's warrior caste. Not as auxiliary forces, not as support personnel, as full combat specialists, eligible for all advanced training and elite unit placement. Her smile widened. Thank you, Commander. Do not thank me yet, Lieutenant. You have opened a door for your species, but walking through it will require thousands more like you. Humans who possess your determination, your adaptability, your absolute refusal to surrender. Trust me, Commander. We have plenty of those. I believed her. 3 solar cycles later, the first cohort of human recruits arrived at Station Korvax. 100 soldiers from Earth, volunteers all, ready to prove themselves worthy of the galaxy's attention. I watched them disembark, noting their varied sizes, shapes, backgrounds. Some were clearly military veterans, others appeared to be civilians. Lieutenant Voss, now promoted to training liaison officer, stood beside me. "What do you think, Commander?" "I think the galaxy has underestimated humanity for the last time." "Good answer." She gestured to the assembled recruits. "Ready to train the next generation?" "The question, Lieutenant, is whether the next generation is ready for what training with the Alliance truly requires." She laughed. That sharp human sound that I had learned indicated genuine amusement. "Commander, these are humans. We're never ready. But we show up anyway, and we figure it out as we go. That's kind of our specialty." I watched the recruits forming ranks, their posture uncertain but determined, their expressions mixing fear and excitement. They looked impossibly fragile, utterly unprepared for the trials ahead. Just like Lieutenant Kara Voss had looked 3 cycles ago, standing before the Council of Seven while hundreds of the galaxy's most powerful beings laughed at her presumption. She had proved them all wrong. These recruits would too, because humans, I had learned, possessed one capability that transcended biology, technology, and tradition. They possessed the absolute certainty that limits existed only for those who accepted them. And humanity, collectively, had apparently decided that limits were merely suggestions. The galaxy would never be the same. High Chancellor Morvek contacted me that evening, his holographic projection filling my command office. "Commander Thexal, I have reviewed your recommendations regarding the Human Integration Program. And? The Council is divided. Many still believe humans are too fragile, too inexperienced, too recently discovered to warrant full warrior caste inclusion. With respect, Chancellor, the Council is wrong. You sound quite certain." "I am certain. I have witnessed what humans can accomplish. I have seen them exceed every limitation we assumed governed their capabilities. They will reshape our understanding of what warriors can be." Moravec was silent for a moment. "Very well, Commander. Your recommendation carries substantial weight. The Human Integration Program will proceed. But understand this. You are now personally responsible for their training, their development, and their success or failure. If they prove unworthy, the consequences will reflect on your judgment. I accept that responsibility, Chancellor. Then I wish you fortune, Commander. You will need it." The hologram dissolved. I stood alone in my office, looking out at the stars beyond Station Korvax, thinking about Lieutenant Kara Voss and her impossible victory, about the 100 human recruits preparing for trials that would break most beings, about a species that had looked at the galaxy and simply decided they belonged among its warriors. They were right, of course. Not because humans were stronger, faster, or more advanced than other species, but because they had something more dangerous than any weapon, more powerful than any technology. They had the absolute conviction that they could become anything they decided to become. And throughout the galaxy's long history, nothing had ever proven more unstoppable than a human who had made up their mind.